Welcome to another video from Dr. Lock. We're going to be making a key for this T-handle here, and this is a lock focus T-handle. We've got our space and depth here. We also do sell space and depth keys on our website. We're going to be using the space and depth keys to get our actual spacing. So using these space and depth keys as a tool, the first thing I could do is I could duplicate my number 1, which is the highest cut. I could duplicate ones across a blank key, allowing me to identify where the spacings are, or I could simply just use that, put them side by side, line them up, and then I could use just a marker like so to find my correct spacings, which I'll do that way. That's probably the quickest way. So from that there, I just need to give these a little mark, just like that. If you can see that, that will give me my spacings. Now I've got my spacings for my key. We're going to be using clippers for this example to make this key. It's a very quick little key. The spacings that we've done here are all to size now because we've copied them off our space and depth keys. Or we could have put these in the duplicator and a blank key and just cut the number 1 key, which will give me a groove in each position. Sometimes that does work, sometimes it doesn't work very well, so it's up to you. Now for this T-handle here, we have to remove the barrel. For security reasons I can't show you that, but there's the barrel right there and there's the housing right there. Okay, so we need to first find out what the code is. So looking at this now, I can see that the first one here is a 1, then we have a 3, a 3, a 2 and a 1. Okay, so we already have our spacing on our key. The first one is a 1, so that's a no cut. The next one is a 3 and a 3. So looking at my my key now, I've got my wrong key. Here's the correct key here. I've got my spacing already done. So now I need to go through. The first one was a 1, a no cut, and then I've got to put a 3 and a 3 in. So I simply just go down to here, find my spacing, and I put that in. 3 and 3. Now I can also check with my space and depth keys whether or not my cuts are high enough. I can tell from there that they're spot on. Then my next cut is a 2, and then the next cut is a 1. So I simply need to just pop in a 2 here. Now I check it in the lock, and I can see that my 3s are not deep enough, so I'm just going to quickly adjust them. There's little lines on these clippers here, if you can see, so they're a bit hard to actually see when you're cutting. 3, 3, 3. That's my key there, and I can tell now that that's all nice and smooth. So I'm going to put this back into the lock now. I could have also used my space and depth keys to cut the key by code. And there we have it. Okay, so there you have it. There's the key, there's the lock. We put the key into the lock, and you can turn it 180 degrees. The handle is open. Turn it the other way, the handle is locked. So we've just produced that key using our space and depth and also checking against our chart. If we wanted to make sure that our cuts with these clippers are accurate, what we could actually do is zero these and then check the measurements here, such as we know as a 3 cut is for 440, and then I can check on here and see how far away we are. So I can see about 420, so I can tell you that the cuts that I've done by hand are a little bit low. You can also basically start up high and just work your way down, and using the space and depth keys you could also use it on a duplicator and cut one to the other. In actual fact, we might just do that now that we know the code. I'll show you how to use these to produce the key with the duplicator. Okay, so now we're going to use the space and depth keys to cut the key we've just cut before using the clippers. We're going to cut that on a blank, or we're going to use space and depth to cut to another key. One of the reasons is because sometimes you don't get very good grooves with these particular cutters. They will cut your depth quite nicely, but sometimes the corners are left a little bit sharp and doesn't allow the wafers to go in and out nice and easily. So it's always a preferable option to use the space and depth keys on the machine, because because you get to copy the ramps as well. So for this example here, we already know our combination. That's our combination. So we start off just by loading the key in. I'm going to go to draw A on this machine. There's our blank key. Now the first one was a 1, which is basically a no cut, so we don't need that one. And then we had a 3-3, so we're going to put in the 3. I'm lining both of them up, making sure they're square. Just grabbing some safety goggles. Safety goggles are definitely important with key cutting machine. Okay, so here's our key. I'll use this so I can outline which cuts I'm doing. So the first one's a no cut, which is position 1. Then in position 2 and 3 we have a 3 cut, which we're going to cut now. So we're going to skip the first position, which we can clearly identify, and we're going to just go straight into the key at the second position. Now, just looking at our key, we can get the measurements out, but I can tell you after years of experience what the next cut is. Also, we've decoded it just then. That's a 2. So we're going to come along, we're going to bring the cutter and plunge straight into that 2, then go backwards and forwards in that cut to give it nice, good ramps. So I go back to my space and depth key, 0, 1, find my number 2. I load that up. I set the shoulder just as I would any other key machine. Then I move the tracer over to position 4. Got to be careful not to go too far when you're doing space and depth keys. You only really just want to just cut your position. If you go too far over, you can go into the next cut. Now I'll give it a quick polish. Okay, so we have our 2 keys now. One we cut, just lost it. One we cut on the key machine, and one we cut with the clipper. So this is the one we cut with the clipper. I can see right here. And the first thing you have to do is just check that there's no sharp edges. That the pins and discs will, well, the disc in this case will actually be allowed to roll over the top. This one here that I've cut on the key machine with the space and depth, I can tell that there's a bit of a sharp edge right here. So to rectify that, just need to get a file, just increase that angle, just like that, so that when you insert it into the lock, the discs can actually move over the top. So now it's got a smooth edge now. I'll just give it a little bit of a smooth edge here as well. Normally you don't have to do this too much, but it's important to check. And I'm just checking this other key here. This one here we did with clipper as well. It's a little bit sharp. Give that a slight file. Now we can just test them in the lock. Okay, and that's working. That's my other space and depth key that we cut on the machine, and that's working perfectly too. So that's 2 ways to cut a key to code, one using space and depth keys on a duplicating machine, the other one using hand clippers and cutting it to code and measuring it. You can also do it by eye. A lot of locksmiths do it by eye. These space and depth keys are available from drlock.com.au. Just go to our lock shop, go to keys and then key space and depth, and hopefully this has been some help to anyone who's cutting keys by code. And for further information, please email. Thanks for watching.